Hello, John Talley here with Boats.net. Today we're going to be replacing the output shaft on our MerCruiser Bravo One drive. Now granted, this is a little bit older unit and there's a couple of things we need to look out for once we open it up. So let's step over to the table, look at the tools, and then any parts we're going to need to pull this off. Alright guys, if you're only replacing your prop shaft, then you only need to order the bearing and the prop shaft itself. Now on my particular setup, this is an older unit and I know that it has the previous design, if you will. It is made up of a thrust washer and then the shims, and then you'll have the housing that goes into the O-ring against it. Well, of course, with the O-ring. Now, you know, of course, on the newer units, you have a load ring, thrust washer, then the O-ring, and the housing goes into it. And as I can show you later, once we pull this apart, the bearing carrier housings, they're different. The output shafts are actually the same, but the bearing carrier housings, they're going to be a little different, and I'll show you that once we pull it apart. Now you will need to pull the bearing off the old output shaft because there is a washer down low that we need to get to and transfer over to the new one before we put that bearing on. Now, as far as the special tools go, you're going to need a retaining ring or nut removal tool, and the one I decided to go with is one from Marine Tech. Now I really like this particular unit because the body remains the same and you just change out the head depending on which make and model that you happen to be working on. Now, another piece we're using from Marine Tech is their bearing carrier extraction tool. Now I've yet to run into one that this thing could not pull out. It is a very robust unit. Really believe in this one. Last but not least, you're going to need a lower range torque wrench, and what we're talking about is taking readings in the 15 to 25 inch pound, because what we're going to be doing is measuring the rotation resistance as we tighten down on this load ring. So you will need that to get it set accurately when we're tightening down that retaining nut. Well guys, now that we've got our parts and our tools together, let's jump over there and pull this thing apart. Let's start by bringing out the Outdrive so it'll drain properly, and we're going to use the trailer switch on this particular boat to accomplish that. Let's start off with our vent screw up top. When you remove it, there should be a gasket or an O-ring. Sometimes it has a tendency to stay up inside the housing, and if you are going to replace it, make sure that you dig the other one out first. Next, let's go for the drain plug. It is down here at the bottom, and there will be a similar gasket in place on it as well. And as you're draining this, it's going to give you an idea of what kind of shape your seals are in. So if you drain this and it has kind of a chocolate milk look to it, you're getting water intrusion. This one, I know they have been drained recently, so it's decent fluid, but not the correct type if you notice. The MerCruiser Mercury is typically the blue stuff. This one was changed kind of last minute, and they used what was available. Marine grade, of course, but we're going to be going back with the MerCruiser stuff. First thing, there's a large washer back here, and it's got different tabs, and we want to find the one or two that have been bent in that hold this ring in place. And it looks like this one just has one, so we're going to get in there and open it up. Now you do want to bend it back far enough where one, it's not in these channels any longer, but two, it needs to be far enough for the tool's teeth to actually fully engage the ring itself. Because if your boat is a saltwater boat, chances are this is going to be heavily corroded and it needs as big a bite as it can get on that ring to get it removed. So we've got our Marine Tech tool, going to engage the teeth, and then this is just counterclockwise to remove. And it's going to have a fair amount of torque on it. Fortunately, this one had been apart not too long ago. And one of the big tricks that I'll show you when we go to put it back together is to use a marine grade anti-seize grease to make this possible, because so many times I've gone to remove these and they wouldn't budge, and the only way you could get it out is to drill it out at these points, because this is aluminum. Make sure you don't damage the housing, and actually break this away and remove it piece by piece. But ours has been greased properly, and it's not going to be that tough to pull apart. Alright, there's our retaining nut. Here's that washer I was referring to. There we go. Now notice the way it came out. This tab is going to be facing back up when we go to reinstall it. And your bearing carrier housing needs to be facing up as well. So that will be in the correct position. So keep that in mind when we go to put it back together. So what we're going to do is bring in our bearing carrier extractor. You're going to insert it and then rotate it to where these teeth actually grab on the back side of the housing. Right about there. Now once again, I know that this one's been pulled apart not too long ago, so it shouldn't be hard to extract it. Oh yeah, not an issue. Always looks easy on camera, doesn't it? But believe me, this unit, it can get it done, even if it's corroded in there. Alright, there's our bearing carrier housing. Back in the back, you're going to find your O-ring. Now we can go ahead and remove the output shaft. Now here's where we need to remove the thrust ring as well as the shims that are in place on the old system, because we're not going to use those anymore. And I'm just using a 3-jaw puller to reach in there and extract them. There we go. All right guys, before we go any further, I wanted to show you the difference in between the old setup and the new setup. Like I said earlier, you've got a different bearing carrier housing, thrust ring, then you had a shim, and then you had the sealing O-ring. With the newer design, you've got a different bearing carrier. We actually have a load ring. The thrust washer compresses against it as we're tightening it down, and then of course your O-ring out here. Now your output shafts themselves, they are the same, but there's one thing you need to note. You need to go in and remove this bearing off the old output shaft unless you're going to order a new one, because it has to be transferred over to the new one when you're installing the new bearing. Now what I want to show you is the main difference in between the two bearing carriers. This one is a little bit longer. If you look at this, that's the distance you're going to find where it's shorter, and that also translates from this height to this height. So if you're replacing just your output shaft, yes, you can do it. But on this one, I want to go ahead and upgrade it. So to do that, I went ahead and got the new bearing carrier, etc. Otherwise, I'm trusting that it's going to line up as far as the shim thickness to get that clearance correct on the meshing of the gears. And honestly, I don't even think you can get the shim pack anymore. So they're more or less forcing you to upgrade to the new system, which works so much better. You don't have to re-shim it each time you go in and replace a set of bearings or seals inside the carrier. You just buy another load ring and tighten it down. And I will show you how to go through that process as we put it back together. So guys, just really quick, that's the differences. Now let's go get this washer off the old output shaft, transfer it over to the new one, get the bearing pressed on, and then we can put this together. Now all I'm using is a regular press, and what we're going to do is set it up to where this bearing removal tool actually just catches just to the inside of that bearing, and then we're going to push it through. There we go. Now this isn't a super tight fit, so this really should push out pretty easy. Now you could reuse this bearing potentially, but I would not recommend it, because we're putting a lot of stress on the outside of the bearing, and that's not where you want to have to push it, but this is the only way we can get this one off. See how it's starting to mushroom out? So yeah, there's just about no way to reuse this. Let's see if we can get under that other edge. There's such a small amount of room to work here. Let's see if that'll hold. There we go. That one had a fair amount of tension on it, but that is what we were after. That can go in the trash. So next, get our washer in place. Now we're going to adjust this to go on the inside, because we can reach all the way in to this part, and that's what we want to push against, not the outside. We need to be to this inside edge. Now, square it up. Let's go. That should do it. So we've got our load ring, we've got our thrust washer, and we've got our O-ring in place. Now we just need to prep our housing. And if you're reusing an older housing, and if it has any corrosion up here, clean it all off and then use a marine grade sealant around this edge. That way it'll help seal up against that O-ring. Now the other thing you want to do is use a marine grade anti-seize, and it's important that it be marine grade because this has aluminum in it. Now there are some that may have brass or bronze or some other type of metal mixed in with it, and that'll cause galvanic corrosion, and that's exactly what we don't want to happen. So make sure that you're going to use a marine grade for this purpose. And what we're going to do is just put a light layer around this surface, and then last but not least, we're going to use a marine grease and fill in between these two seals on the inside. Now, even though I've got a brand new unit, it still needs to be packed on the inside before we assemble it. And I would definitely suggest wearing gloves, because you are going to make a mess, especially with this stuff. The reason we're doing this is eventually you're going to have to take this back apart. And if you run in salt water, this is going to corrode. It's not if, it's going to. And it will give you a fit pulling it back apart. And then we're going to fill in this cavity here with grease. Get our new prop shaft. We'll go and put a little bit of grease right here, because that's where your seals are going to ride. And then we're going to take a little bit of lower unit lube and just pour it over our bearing before we install it. Now, let's go and get that in place. Now when we're putting this in, you want this V where it says top pointing up. Now mine went in really smooth. There are times when you may need to give it a little tap to get it to go in. What you're looking for here is to see roughly a 1/2 inch of thread. Plenty for the retaining nut to grab onto to start setting the final torque on it. All right, we've got our locking washer. Remember, this tab goes up into the housing right here. We're a little bit off. So what we need to do is give it a little bit of a tap just to get it to rotate ever so slightly. There we go. Now it's going to go in place. That'll work. Now this is one more place where you're going to want to use the anti-seize or grease. Get another layer on your threads, because especially if you're working with a new one, if it isn't lubricated as you put this together, there is a chance that these threads can gall, and that will make a mess out of your housing. Ask me how I know that, because as many times as I've done this, it's gotten me as well. Now, you want to have the outside with the lettering, and especially where it says off and an arrow, you want that facing out. And definitely put it in just with your fingers, because if you cross thread it, you're going to have a big mess on your hands. What we're going to do at this point is bring in our retaining nut tool, and we're going to lightly seat it. At that point, we're going to start taking measurements with our torque wrench, and we're going to be aiming for somewhere in between, because this is a new bearing, in between 8 and 12 inch-pounds. And we're going to keep tightening it down in 1/4 inch turns until we hit that number. You'll know you're getting close when it doesn't have quite so much play. Now you are going to feel some resistance because you're starting to compress. All right, it's getting closer. But now's when you want to start paying attention. So just do it in quarters. Because before you know it, this is going to tighten up on you. That is a fair amount of mojo I'm putting on that. I can guarantee you it doesn't have any real rolling resistance to it at all right now. So, what is going wrong here? Am I running out of threads, potentially? Let's back it off and see if it's bottomed out. So here's what we're up against, guys. You can see where the original retaining nut, it went from here to here. Now further in, as expected, there's going to be a little bit of corrosion where it was not engaging. With this new setup going on an older, lower unit, it needs to go another turn or two. And I can see where the threads actually are. They're just encased. So what we're going to have to do is ever so carefully clean out those last couple of turns to bring it in and actually set the rolling resistance. Otherwise, this is not going to work. A little bit of a hurdle, but we will get through this. Let's see just how stubborn this stuff's going to be. I feel like a dentist. Yeah. So that's that first thread. Now I know they make threading cleaning tools, and I may go see if we can get access to one of those. Okay guys, we've got our thread chase, but before we use it, we want to go ahead and put some cutting oil on each of the teeth and then a little bit on the threads themselves. So let's do that real quick and then we'll run it through. And if you don't have any cutting oil, you could probably get away with just using some type of engine oil. You need to have something on there to help it do its job. Start it in by hand just to make sure she goes smooth. Now we'll use the handle, insert it like that in a 27mm socket, and we'll run it down. All right, if it starts to bind up a little bit, reverse it just for about 1/8 of a turn, and then keep going. Yeah, that's got a fair amount of corrosion that's getting out of there. Those last 2 or 3 threads are going to make all the difference. That is probably it. Yeah. Oh yeah, much better, much better. Remember, this is a new setup, so we're basically updating this to use a load ring instead of the shims. So the load ring goes in first, and you always want to use a new one when you're reinstalling the bearing carrier. Now also keep in mind, this one has a different thickness thrust washer with this setup. And our O-ring seals goes in next. And that cleaned up really well, so I'm happy. Now we've got our new output shaft, of course with this bearing, and the correct washer under there. Now we've got our bearing carrier ready to go. Make sure that you've got the seals packed with grease in between the 2 cavities, and then of course we've got the anti-seize around these 2 surfaces. And when you install it, you want this V to be pointing up. Much better. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to just glide in there. Because if you have to force it, it's not cleaned out enough. This one, it felt right, it looks right, so I think we're going to be good to go on this one. Next, a retaining washer. Make sure you've got plenty of anti-seize on your threads, and we want the lettering facing out. Start it by hand always. Now I think we can bring in a Marine Tech tool, start tightening it down. Now when we're doing this, it's going to be compressing that load ring that's down in there. We want to do this in small increments so we don't over compress it and then get too high of a reading. So what we're looking for is a rotational torque of somewhere in between 8 and 12 inch-pounds. Not a lot. I can go ahead and tell you, we hadn't even bottomed out yet because I can easily move the shaft around. So there's no sense in measuring it yet. So let's go ahead and start bringing it in. But we still have a ways to go. So let's increase our leverage. All right, now I think it's time for us to get out the torque wrench and see what it's doing. All right, it's close. Be very smooth when you're doing this, otherwise it's going to give you a false reading. All right, that looks a little over 6. So we have just a little bit more of a turn, and I think we're going to be in the ballpark. Remember, you don't want to over tighten this, otherwise you have to get another load ring. Small increments. So our target, is in between 8 and 12, so we're going to shoot for 10. And remember, that's for a new bearing, and that's what we're working with. Not quite. Still not there. Ooh, that's feeling close there. I bet you that did it. That got us our 8. Let's do a little bit more. I want to see 10. There's my 10. I'm going to nudge it a little bit more. I still have a bit of a window on my tolerance, you know, it's in between 8 and 12 inch-pounds. We're at 10. I'm going to bring it a little bit more so that tab in there, when I fold it back, it'll fully engage with the retaining nut. That should do it. Verify that we're still okay. Right at 11, so we're still good. We may have to use a slide hammer to straighten it all the way up. There we go. Let's reach in there, bend that in. There. Now, let's get on our new anode. These are just 8mm heads. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up this project. The only thing I have to do now is just lower the unit down and then refill it with gear lube. Now, if you need help doing that, we have a video showing you step by step. So if you would, just check the playlist for this particular unit and I can walk you through that process. Well, listen, if you need any parts for your boat, why don't you come see us at boats.net and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And hey, if you like what you see, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you can keep up with whatever I'm working on next. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at boats.net, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.